Good afternoon and good evening, everyone, and welcome to No One Succeeds Alone. Learn everything you can from everyone you can with Robert Reffkin. My name is Colin Mahan, and I'm a program manager at the Nasdaq Entrepreneurial Center. For those of you who may not know, and this is your first time with us, the Nasdaq Center is a nonprofit dedicated to enabling entrepreneurs from all over the world to realize their maximum potentials and grow. As you may have just seen in the chat, the Nasdaq Center, along with our partner Mentor Cloud, launched a free mentor matching platform for entrepreneurs called Mentor Makers. Find or become a mentor today by using the link in the chat. Mentorship matters to all entrepreneurs, as this book in discussion will signal. So we are humbled by your contributions. Quick housekeeping item. We're going to open up for quite quick live Q&A at the end of the event. So please submit your questions in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen throughout the presentation. We'll try to get to them all. Now, none of what we do at the center could be possible without all the amazing support from its sponsors, including Nasdaq, Lehigh University, Bank of the West, KPMG, Wilson Sonsini, Woodruff Sawyer, BPM, and NZTE. We are thankful for their contributions. Now, during these still unique times, the center is curious on how sentiment is among the entrepreneurs we work with. So we're going to start by taking a quick poll to let us know how you're feeling about your business right now. First question, we've been measuring since the beginning of COVID-19. And so hopefully those are going to be moving more in the optimistic direction, although we totally understand if you are still feeling anxious or surviving or even fearful in the current climate that we're in. The second question, what's keeping you up at night? Those data points help us understand the responsive programming that we will be serving you as the months continue. So hopefully we can help. I'm going to give those another second or so because I don't want to waste another moment before we jump into this content. So thank you for voting. Oh, there's a ton of results coming in. All right, I'm going to end that poll. Share those results. Optimism is on the rise, but totally understand that there's some anxiety and surviving out there. Also, finance at the top of the key. So good to know. And we definitely have some programs coming up that will help you with those. So without any further delay, please join me in giving a warm welcome in the chat to our host for this conversation. Calvin Cooper is the co-founder and CEO of Rhove. And Calvin's also a Center Advisory Board member and close friend. As mentioned earlier, our special guest for this conversation today is Robert Reffkin, founder and CEO of Compass, who's here to talk to you about his brand new book. Calvin, Robert, so happy to have you guys.
Glad to be here.
Thank you. Really excited. And I'll give a quick intro for Robert. One, he's such an amazing person. He's a husband, a father, and the founder and CEO of Compass, a real estate technology company that is now the largest independent brokerage in America, having helped clients buy or sell homes worth more than $250 billion with a T since its founding. And now he's taking the company public. So congratulations. But there's so much more to this story. So I'm really excited and honored to be with you today. And so, Robert, thank you so much.
Thank you, Calvin.
Let's all give him a virtual round of applause. We can imagine that it's resounding. So we'll start with the beginning. One, I'm really excited to hear that the majority of the room is optimistic. And your book starts with your childhood struggles, and many people go through these things, and they don't come out on the other side optimistic. And I really want to get to the heart of that. You started the book by saying, I felt out of place my entire life. Can you share more about this and how you overcame that struggle?
Yeah, so my background is I'm Black and Jewish. My mom was an Israeli immigrant that moved to the US when she was 7, and then moved to California, where she met my father, who was African-American. And because of that, and really because of me, she was disowned by her parents for having an interracial relationship. And my father left when I was young, so I didn't know him. And growing up, I felt, I wasn't Black enough for my Black friends. I wasn't Jewish enough for my Jewish friends. And I wasn't anything enough for my grandparents. So I definitely always felt, out of place. But over time, I really started to own that. And I felt like every disadvantage can be your advantage if you have the right mindset. It can, everything that's, bad can be good, right? If you can, turn, something negative into positivity by saying, hey, I'm going to use that to create energy to build something better for my future. That's one way to do it. Think about Rocky Balboa, right? And all the 7 or 8 Rocky movies. If you're younger, you probably call it Creed. Or I noticed that I thought my differences let me stand out more, right? I could go through all the environments I was in, and feel like, hey, I'm the only one like this. I don't feel like I belong. Or I can say, hey, now I'm more memorable. And so I just try to always turn these things whenever I saw my mind making something negative on how can I flip it and make it positive. And there's usually a way to do that. And that gives you energy, which lets you move forward.
That's pretty incredible. How did you come to this worldview?
How did I come to? Look, I think what my mom did that was really smart is, single mother. She knew she didn't have the resources to give me everything that she wanted. So she had me apply to a bunch of different nonprofits when I was younger. So I was in 7 nonprofits as a student. And each one of these nonprofits had a board, had staff, had mentors around, and then really positive communities of kids that were all trying to get better. And I think they really gave me an abundancy mindset, a positive mindset, that there's opportunities everywhere around you. Yeah, and that was really the goal of all these nonprofits, is to take kids and say, you can go there. And there was always mean something different. We didn't always know what it was. But I think if I had to say, like, there's one thing that helped me when I was younger to shape a positive mindset, that would be it.
That's incredible. And you also write a lot about your mom and what she taught you about having dreams. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes. So when I went to bed at night, my mom, she never said have sweet dreams. She said have big dreams, and dream big, right? And I think that really did something to me because I've been like dreaming it ever since. I'm always thinking about the future and what beautiful world I can help create for myself, for my family, for the people I care about, for the company, for the nonprofit, for people that are seeking opportunity. And just it's such a good mindset to always be dreaming and to feel like it's okay. And it's okay also if you fail. Like my mom, she seeing her, when I was young, she always pursued her dreams. And when she failed, she just would dream up a new dream, and that was okay. She went through bankruptcy. She went through bad relationships with men, bad relationships with her parents. She never talked to her dad again after I was born. That was it. Like there wasn't like they reconciled. That was it until he died. And that's a hard thing. Imagine if your parents said you're not good enough to even talk to ever again. And so in these moments of failure, she would just think of a new dream, and we would dream it together, and it made everything exciting and positive. And so I think that really helped. And watching her be an entrepreneur every single day, and I'll tell you, a single mother is an entrepreneur. They have to make it happen, and they have to use their creativity, their grit, and everything they got to make it work. And so seeing her like that made me really excited to be an entrepreneur.
That's awesome. And that foundation really started to impact you at a young age. I thought it was amazing how you put this mindset into action heading into high school. I mean, like, who comes up with principles for success when they're that age? Like, can you tell us more about this? It starts with dreaming big, but want to hear more about that process leading up to high school.
Well, one of the nonprofits was called the National Foundation for Teaching Entrepreneurship. And they, as part of it, you learn all about entrepreneurship, and you have this curriculum, but also you have to write a business plan. And my business plan was being a DJ. Yeah, I had dreadlocks at the time. I had a red, yellow, and green van in Berkeley, California. and I won the award. I got I think it's around $500, and with that plus a bunch of my babysitting money and bar mitzvah money, I bought a bunch of DJ equipment and became a DJ. And I was the most utilized disc jockey in the San Francisco Bay Area high school system for 2 years in a row. And doing that in high school, working 4 nights a week in all different types of environments, private schools, bar mitzvahs, weddings, private, parties. That really makes you feel comfortable, force you to feel comfortable in a lot of different types of environments. There are a lot of different types of parties, and with a lot of different types of musical interests. And I was employing my friends, but that really was a formative experience that made me feel like, hey, if I can do this, I can do anything. And I just continue to take that approach again and again and again.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I actually was a music producer in high school. Love
that. I love
to share that experience. So cool. And so mentorship really impacted your life at a young age. You want to tell us more about how that carried forward into adulthood? Who were some of your most impactful mentors professionally? And how did that impact your trajectory?
Yeah, look, I would say my best mentor just has to be my mom. Just again, seeing her, try again and again, okay, if she fails here and there, bounce back. Like it was very informative for me. But outside of that, it would be the late Vernon Jordan. He was a civil rights leader who worked with in the Clinton administration as head of the transition committee, and then was a senior partner at the Aiken Gump law firm, and then was a senior partner at Lazard Frere. He was on the board of more Fortune 500 companies than anyone else in the history of the United States, and much more that I didn't mention. And there are people that have advice and people that have wisdom. He had more wisdom because he had seen so much across different sectors. And I've had the chance with him and through him, the people that he introduced me to and other mentors, to get so much advice and so many great lessons. And that's really what this book is all about. How do I take the best lessons from all of these, unique, individuals that I was so fortunate to meet, and then put it into a book and make it easily accessible for others. And so, the late Vernon Jordan would definitely be the key person.
Yeah, he's an absolute icon. And how did you meet him?
Okay. Yeah, so I worked at Lazard Frere, which is a boutique investment bank in New York, and he was a senior partner there. And I just saw him walking the halls, and I never saw a powerful Black man like that before. I just never saw it, right? And then the company I worked at before, McKinsey, didn't have any Black partners, right? And much less a senior partner who sits right next to the CEO in the corner office of 50 Rockefeller Center in the top floor, right? Like I never see who's Bill Clinton's best friend, more Fortune 500 board. I never see anything like that, right? And so I saw him, and I was just, starstruck. I was 23 when I met him, and I went up to him and I said, "Hello, my name is Robert Reffkin." And he said, "My name's Mr. Jordan." I literally said Mr. Jordan, not Vernon, right? My name's Mr. Jordan. He's old school. He must have been, when I met him, like 70 years old, right? So he's Mr. Jordan. And I said, "Look, if you have a moment, I'd love to meet with you." And so I met with him, and yeah, he had great stories about all types of things, from the civil rights movement, walking with Martin Luther King, how Blacks and Jews worked together at the time. Like, it is all these wonderful stories about the history of our country. And what was nice about so many of the stories is they lean towards a message that anything's possible. And he really made me feel that. I'll give you just one quick example. I'll never forget this moment. He says on the last night of Bill Clinton's presidency, he gets a call. Vernon gets a call from Bill Clinton. He says, "Hey, come over for the last night." And so they come over, and it's just the two of them in like the presidential kitchen. And I think he said like he was eating like chips, and Pepsi or something, or Coke. And he said, he used to add all these Cokes, like, Diet Coke or something like that. And they said they were talking till late in the night, well past midnight. And he said, like, Bill, I gotta go. I gotta go to sleep. I mean, it's just too late. And so he gets out of the White House, and he has his car, and he drives out. He said it was like a nice, I think a Dodge Python or something like that. He said like cars. And he goes out of the White House, and he just takes a moment and just reflects that for the last 8 years, 2 poor people from the South, one Black, one white, were helping to lead the free world. And when he said that, I remember electricity just went through my body. It's like, if that's possible, anything's possible. And so, I feel so fortunate to have had the time that I had with him, that I feel guilty. He's given me a lot of great stories and great advice over the years.
You said you feel guilty. Why?
That's interesting. Look, not all my friends had the same opportunities I had. And I'm not the kind of person that says, oh, I worked hard, and if I can do it, everyone else can. That's not my style. I did work hard, but I think I had a lot of lucky breaks. And if there weren't one of 20 people I met, I wouldn't be where I am. If there weren't one of 20 great breaks where people overlooked something, helped me get through to the next phase, I wouldn't be where I am. And meeting Vernon, Mr. Jordan like that, and then Ken Chenault, the CEO of American Express at the time, and all these other people, that's not something that everyone gets. These are once in a generation, or once in a lifetime opportunities for most people, particularly the kind of friends I had when I was younger. And I felt guilty that I was, I don't know what the right word is, chosen, selected, given the opportunity. I don't know what it is, but I just felt like, it wasn't fair that I was able to get this. So I think that's part of, again, what this book is all about, is trying to take the best of those stories from all those different people, best of those lessons, and give it to others. But I think that guilt is a feeling that other people have as well, right? I think a lot of people that get out of a circumstance kind of have that guilt that they, that not everyone else did.
Mm-hmm. And that sense of responsibility. I mean, you're bringing your experiences to the world. And so we are lucky that you met Mr. Jordan. And now that you're sharing your story with us. So thank you. And how did you meet some of the other mentors? And then how did you cultivate those relationships? Because a lot of people meet important, powerful people in passing. Few people walk up, shake their hand. But once they respond and say, yeah, I'll take the call, or I'll sit down with you. How did you approach cultivating those relationships?
Yeah, a great question. And I'm not sure if it would be as easy today with my approach as it was back then. Because now with email and direct messaging and all this stuff, text messages, and there's so much more spam that I think people are just saying, hey, I'm cut off, right? Unless you're being introduced by a friend, I'm kind of cut off. And so again, I'm not sure if it would be as easy as it was back then. It wasn't easy, but this is how it all started. Started with, I never had a father, so I was always looking for one. And I was looking for advice. Anyone that could give me advice when I was young was thank you so much. That was great. And I really showed them how much I appreciate it. But then as I got out of college, I think what I realized that is the power of a personal conversation, and the power of follow-up, and the power of doing what you say you're going to do. I think that's where I differentiate. So once I met with somebody, I would always try to bring in a personal conversation. And so an example would be when's the right time to get married? I mean, that people love that kind of question, that kind of conversation. I realized these powerful people, they didn't want to be all business. Who wants to be all business? They're people too. And so treating them like people and having more of a real conversation, I think what was one. Two is I would always follow up, handwritten thank you notes. after a month, I would say, hey, here's how I use your advice, and here's how it helped. And then I'd follow up and say, hey, you gave me great advice in the past. Can we meet again? And then lastly, just doing what you say you're going to do. Most 90+% of people do not do what they say they're going to do. And so when I would meet people, I try to find opportunities to show them that I was going to do what I said I was going to do. Whether it's how I use their advice, whether it's how I followed up with them. But I think that's really where I differentiate, because if someone's going to introduce you to somebody else, they want to know that you're not going to embarrass them, that you're not going to not follow up and all those things. And so then, one person introduces me to another person introduces me to another. And I think the last thing I'd say is just being a really good person matters as well. Some people are takers, some people are givers. And people want to give to givers, not to takers. Right. And I always was on the boards of a lot of nonprofits. I was on the board of education in New York City, and I worked in the White House, and I started a nonprofit, started a charter school. I was running 50 marathons in my 20s to raise money for those nonprofits I was in when I was younger. And so I think just showing people that I was a good person also helped reinforce some of those relationships.
Absolutely. And it feels good. There's an ROI to them giving you advice. You really took it seriously. And that kind of played into your transition into entrepreneurship. It's interesting that some of your mentors were giving you, one specifically, the advice to take the leap. Meanwhile, Mr. Jordan's telling you shouldn't leave an institution until you are one. And you really wrestle with that. You want to talk to us more about how you found your way into entrepreneurship and how you wrestled with the advice of your mentors?
Yeah. You really read the book. That was one of my favorite things that Mr. Jordan said. Don't, son, because I came to him at 23 years old, and at first meeting I said, I want to work here for 2 years, then I want to start a nonprofit. I want to go off and just run a nonprofit. And he looked at me and said, son, you got to make a check before you write one. And I was like, huh? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, you don't leave an institution until you are one. I was like, oh, okay. All right. So I wrote that down. I have every quote he ever gave me, I have in my files. But and then Ray McGuire, who was head of investment banking at Citigroup and just ran for mayor in New York City, he said, you should learn as much as you possibly can from your time at Lazard, and treat it as a final examination paper, learning. And then after 5 years, then you can go off and do something else. And then I talked to him 5 years later. He said, oh no, another 5 years. so that there was this group of people who I think their approach was, don't take this for granted, right? Young kid, don't take this for granted. You are very lucky that you are here. And most people would die to have the opportunity to be here. You need to work hard and make good on it. And so I think that was their approach. But then there were these select other Black mentors who would say things like this. For my son, if you were my son, I would tell you to go take a risk and try to create something. And now I always looked at these two people in particular. It was Bill Lewis and Bayo Ogunlesi. I looked at them and said, yeah, if I was your son, I would. I didn't tell them, but hey, if I was your son, I could do whatever I want. But I'm not. I don't have a father. I have to take care of all the bills. But one day, many years later, I was trying to leave Goldman Sachs because I could tell that things were closing in on me. I can tell that my opportunities wouldn't be as bright in the future as they were in the past. And I called Bayo Ogunlesi and I said, hey, I would love to work for you and to do private equity, your company, because Global Infrastructure Partners. And he says, the thing, hey, if you were my son, I would go start something. I said, yeah, but I want to, I love private equity and I want to work for you and I have to take care of my family. I'm getting married in a couple months. I can't, I can't go start something. And he said, how about this? As part of the interview process, you create a business plan of a great entrepreneurial idea. And I'll use that as a way to evaluate, whether I can hire you or not. but I want you to put as much effort into this plan as you do into all of your nonprofit efforts, because he was the biggest donor to the nonprofit I founded for students who are first in their family to go to college. And so then I go off, I create this business plan, come back to him, and he says, well, this is great, go do it. And I was like, bio? What do you mean it's great, go do it? I only did the business plan so I can work for you. That's what we talked about. He said, Robert, how about this? I'll be your first investor. I'll invest $500,000. And if you fail in a year, I'll hire you. And I looked up to the right. I'm trying to think of a reason why not to accept that agreement. And I couldn't think of one. And you got to be quick on your toes with these people. And I was like, okay. And I shook his hand, and he was my first investor. And he forced me to do something that I never would have done otherwise. I'm risk averse, right? I'm as a person. And so I really appreciate him as he transformed my life.
And he gave you that fallback that a lot of people have. Like you mentioned, like if you were their son, then you would take that risk, right? And so this kind of gave you the space you needed. That's incredible. Many founders deal with imposter syndrome, though. And so when you're taking that leap, did you feel like you were ready when you started Compass? Like after you said yes, how did you feel? How did you prepare for that next step?
You brought up imposter syndrome. Look, I never knew what that really meant until the last 4 or 5 years, as a lot of people have started talking to me about how they feel that way. I think it's a very widespread issue. And I felt that way for certain in college, for certain at McKinsey, for certain in the White House, for certain at Lazard, and for certain at Goldman Sachs. I think for the first time ever, I don't feel like an imposter at Compass. And I think that's why I've done so much better at Compass than at other places. I took some really good advice from a mentor of mine named Henry Cornell, who was head of the private equity business at Goldman Sachs. I'm a year and a half in. He gives me my review and he says, Robert, you're never going to be good at the numbers. You're never going to be good at analysis. Stop trying to make these your weakness a strength. Just minimize your weakness and maximize your strengths. And he talked about what my strengths were and how I can maximize them. Now, that day I didn't have lunch. I didn't have dinner. I go home depressed, go to sleep, wake up the next morning, and I say, okay, I'm going to do it. Yeah. And it really, really helped. Yeah. And I have I fully harness the power of that approach at Compass, where look, I know I'm not great at a lot of things, but I surround myself with people that are. And I am truly my authentic self. People know whatever that I'm not holding things back. And I highly urge people to do whatever they can to not feel like an imposter. You are who you are, and that's okay, right? And you just got to be the best you can be and harness your strengths and just minimize your weaknesses.
More on that topic. You mentioned like growing up, you had to adapt yourself to make other people feel comfortable, to find your authentic self. Like you leaned into your core later on in life. At this critical moment, like how did you even find that resolve? Where did you find your authentic self?
Honestly, I think what happened is when I was at Compass, I had no it had to work. It had to work. Right? Like it was all on me. It had to work. So there's no time for like politics and BS. There's no time for maybe we'll talk about this and I'll try to focus on my week. Like it just had to work. So I think I just shed all the imposter syndrome stuff and just like, because like it's almost like, think about if you're running a marathon and like and you're in that you gotta go. Like you gotta get there. Yeah, your knee hurts and this may not, but you just got to go. You have no time for the noise. And so I think a lot of these things that were holding me back before, I said, I don't have time for this right now. Like I have to make this company work. And in this meeting, I'm going to tell these people like, this is what I think, and here's why. And look, the answer may not be the perfect answer, but this is the one I'm betting on. As opposed to like you all, worrying about, hey, if I say this thing, will it have a different impact and will it not be right? I said, forget the noise. I got to move forward. It's not an easy thing, but then I saw the more authentic I was, the better I was. And the more honest and direct I was, the better I was. Yeah, as opposed to me trying to adapt to meet every other company's perception of what they want of me. Like, oh, they're wearing suits, you wear a suit. They all wear this kind of tie, wear that kind of tie. They had those kind of watches and wear that kind of watch. Then this company, they all got the Timex, I got that Timex, right? Like, instead of that, just where you almost feel like you're an actor, like I got rid of all of it and just said, this is who I am, and moved forward.
And so critical, given that you had a pivotal moment early on in the company. Like, you founded Compass to do something else, right? And when you pivoted, well, one, when did you know it was time to pivot? And two, tell us more about how that went with the leadership team and how you had to lean into your core to navigate through that time.
So Compass started off as Urban Compass. It was rentals in New York City, hiring agents that were purely on salary, not commission like every other agent in the country, and paying them bonus for customer satisfaction. They were neighborhood specialists. We hired them from restaurants and hotels, like hospitality. They all had red backpacks. In the backpacks were shoe shiner, breath mints, umbrellas, and battery chargers. And so and they would help people rent a home. Long story short, didn't work at all. We realized people weren't looking for a nice friend with a red backpack. They're looking for someone who was an expert at how to rent a home. And so I told the team, we have to pivot, and we have to pivot to hiring regular traditional agents. I told them my mom is an agent, has been the majority of my life. She's actually an agent today, still at Compass at 76. And she, for years, I saw her struggle moving from firm to firm to firm because she didn't have the tools and the support to realize her dreams and her potential. And I said, we can just take our talent and resources and build for agents like my mom. Yeah. And after saying that, the next day, my co-founder Ori was invited to breakfast with one person on the senior team. He goes to breakfast, everyone's there, and they say, Ori, we need you to fire Robert. He says he doesn't have the vision anymore to go build Compass, our Urban Compass, and we need to continue the path. We shouldn't go to serving traditional agents. And so then Ori said, let's get together for dinner tonight. Let's talk about it. And I go to my wife. I say, honey, I think this may be the end. I may need to call bio. No, I didn't say that point about bio. It was really depressing. And feeling like you're being kicked out of your own company. My wife just says, go to dinner, talk to Ori, and make the case. He said, you have the right judgment. She believed in me, she said, and she just bounce back and go talk to Ori. So I tell Ori, here's why I think it's the right thing. And he ultimately asked two questions that led to our strategy today and to all the success that it's followed. He said, Robert, we can hire, really talented people from companies like, Google and Twitter and McKinsey and Goldman Sachs. And we have a lot of capital to help, hire talented people. If we can just make these agents more successful, won't we be more successful? If we can help them grow, won't we grow? I said, yes, that's the point. And there's so many of them out there. The second question, he said, if you're being chased by a bear, you need to be faster than the second person. And if we go and do this to serve traditional agents, who would be the second person? And I said, well, I think it would be a brokerage firm. And he said, well, that'd be good because brokerage firms don't move that fast. And that's been the approach ever since. We've hired amazing agents. We just ask them, what can we do to help you grow? And we listen to them, and they're the customers. We treat them like customers and help them better serve their clients. And all success has followed that.
That's awesome. And so there's a lot of takeaways there. You leaned into your authentic self. You trusted your gut based on market insights with customers, and then pushed through no matter what all the noise was around you. And how did you balance that having conviction with building a culture of collaboration? Because sometimes you can't make decisions through committee, right? You gotta say, this is what we're doing. And how do you balance that?
Yeah, so like that's never an easy thing. Um, one one mechanism that we have, we talk about SPOA, single point of accountability, where I think sometimes people feel like collaboration is just a bunch of people just all like deferring to each other, but ultimately that's not collaborative because it means it makes it harder to get to the right process and the right goal to get the result. And so we always know whenever there's it's not a result that we're trying to drive, who is the SPOA, single point of accountability. And that's the person who's responsible for driving the process, organizing the people, making sure that nothing slips through the cracks, and really empowering that person to make the decision.
And how do you bring that forward into the company's culture, like balancing activities versus results? And
Yeah, you really read the book, man. Wow. Yeah, so activities versus results. So I have an executive coach, and he says the two things that are the most common are, one, what people think they say isn't what other people hear. And you think you said this, but other people heard something else. The second is the majority of people in the majority of companies define success as the activity, not the result. And what that would mean is, hey, congratulations, we launched this. Or we designed this new site, or we created this new marketing plan. It's great, congratulations. But ultimately, the happiness one gets shouldn't be from an activity; it should be from the result that really drove the company's success. And so, let's say I created a new design for our agents to send to their clients, but if no one used it, then there's no result, right? So that's an example of an activity versus result. Now, how do you get a company to rally around results versus activities? We have what we call OCRs, objectives and customer results. And so every group in Compass at the kind of division level and all the way down to the employee level has to have their OCRs that they're accountable for. And in the language of the reviews and the language of the check-ins, we're talking about how they're driving the results. And yes, activities are contributors to that, but activities are just the inputs. Ultimately, it's about that customer result that we're driving.
that's cool. Did you make that up? Because typically it's like OKRs, objectives and key results. Where did that C come from?
Yeah, you're like a scientist for everything that. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's usually OKRs. Yeah, objectives and key results. It's something that came from Google. We changed it to customer results because I don't think a company can be customer obsessed enough. And I think particularly with a company where the customer isn't as well appreciated, let's say, I think it's even more important to put that emphasis on it. So, why is real estate so far behind? Because so many other industries have been transformed and improved. I think it's because people don't understand the power of the agent, the importance of the agent, how integral they are to the entire process, how they are quarterbacking, the process. They are collaborating in driving forward these, over a dozen different stakeholders to get the transaction done. There's the loan officer, the title officer, the inspector, the appraiser, the painter, the stager, the roofer, floor, the photographer, the videographer. Who do you think's coordinating all that? It's not the client. The buyer and seller is not doing it. It's the agent. And so one of the harder things for me is, how do I hire really talented people from all these amazing companies, have them come in and say, I want to work for agents. They're the customer. I want to help them drive their results. I want to help them grow. And so the OCRs, objectives and customer results, help reinforce that, as another mechanism to be customer obsessed with our agents. Because remember what Ori said, if we can help them be successful, we'll be successful. If we can help them grow, we'll grow.
And you're doing that all the way to the IPO. So I have a fun question. Was the IPO an activity or an outcome?
That's a great question. That's a great question. I think it was more of an activity. I think there's a lot more hoopla around IPOs than any CEO actually feels, because I know all my counterparts. It's a financing. That's all that it is, a financing technically, or that's the only thing it is. Capital comes into the company, and that helps us create a customer result because we can invest that capital. Because remember, the only results that matter are the customer results. Customers are if all the customers love this company, if you're an investor and you only want to know one thing, like forget Compass, just like in general, there's only one, you only get one piece of insight. That insight you should want to know is, how does the customer love this company? Like, would you ever want to leave this company? How much would you pay for this company? Do you think your other friends and colleagues will want to come to this company? Everything comes from the customer and the value you're creating for them. We need to be the company that creates more value for agents than any other company that's ever existed. And every week it's just more and more value. So from that perspective, the IPO is just a financing that will help us have more capital to invest in creating more value for our customers, the agent.
So you don't view it like an exit event. It's just
like an exit?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm not an exit kind of guy. No, absolutely. No, I'm not going anywhere. I guess selling a company would be an exit. I'm in this for the long. We have 24,000 agents and employees in the company that are in the community. We have big dreams and a big vision, and I think we're still incredibly early. When you think about other companies like Netflix, when they went IPO, there was no streaming. When Amazon went IPO, it was only online retail for books. There's no other category but books. No, all the stuff you buy now. No Echo, no Alexa, no Amazon Prime Video, no Whole Foods. No, definitely didn't buy MGM, which they just bought MGM, right? So the future is going to be much more exciting for the world we can invest in than the past.
So people are dreaming about exits, then you would say they're not dreaming big enough. Sounds like.
No, I mean, dreaming about exits, I don't even, what's the point? Like, I'll tell you something I haven't told many people in our private group here of entrepreneurs. I after the IPO, I went on like my first real vacation in like 8 years, my first like real vacation. And I go to this beach, with my family. My mom came, my mother-in-law, the family, and I go out into the with the lawn chair, or the whatever you call the chair that you put out there, and I'm on the beach. In the first morning, I'm leaning back, I'm looking at the clouds, because this is the moment. Like, this is where you're supposed to, like, this is one of those things you really wait for, right? That's what the book says, the people say, the rhetoric. And so I sit down and I look at the clouds, and I'm like trying to feel like that moment. And I was like, but now what? Like, I don't want this. I want to get back to work. I want to create value for the company and for our agents and build something special. And so, yeah, I think that kind of plan B mentality, an exit mentality, I personally would never invest in someone like that. And I think investors, they really are invested in people and their personalities, not the idea, because 90+% of initial ideas fail. And it's like, can that person, do they have the entrepreneurial characteristics to pivot to the right idea? And are they going to, people are going to give up, exit, plan B? Are they people that are going to keep working and trying to harness the power of the team to get to a better future?
Absolutely. I have so many questions, but now I feel guilty. I got to open it up to the audience to ask them their questions. But plug for the book, though, there's a story there about Benice and his wife and how she really helped him grow and probably helped in that moment. So you all have to read the book. But I'll ask this first question from Christina. She asked, what else are you called to do in your work? What's your life mission?
Yeah, so look, I think when you talk about life mission, I really try to frame things in the context of energy. Like, where do you get the most energy? And where I get the most energy is fighting for and running for opportunity. for people that are big dreamers, they're trying to get somewhere better. And so I never felt the kind of passion towards something as I did with the nonprofit I founded for students who are first in their family to go to college and below the poverty line, harnessing mentors every other Saturday it's a 2-year program now. It's for thousands of students over the last 10 plus years, giving them career development, college support, 2 summer internships. It's called America Needs You. And when I was running the marathons for nonprofits, I really feel like I was running for opportunity. It was actually called, you can go to it, runningtosupportyoungdreams.org. And so that's where I got that extra power. I think at Compass, I have grown to feel about agents in a similar way that I felt about those students who are first in their family to go to college. This is the largest industry dominated by women. It's the largest, when the first industry at scale to let the LGBTQ plus community thrive. It's an industry of that empowers single parents because it's one of the few jobs that gives you the flexibility to be with your kids, enough income to support them. It's an industry of families that work together. Of our top teams, 20+% of them are families. And it's an industry that deals with rejection every day and still moves forward. And remember, they don't have salary. They're all independent contractors. They have to, with their hard work, creativity, and talent, realize better. And so that's what gets me excited. When I was at Goldman Sachs and McKinsey and Lazard, the clients didn't get me. I didn't get that feeling from them, right? There's like big companies. These agents are small business owners. They're entrepreneurs. And so that's really what gets me excited. And I think there are a lot of wonderful things out there. Education, for example, that's a real passion of mine for a similar reason. But right now, my focus is just on the 24,000 people at Compass today and the hundreds of thousands that will be there tomorrow.
That's awesome. So you've identified and served customer needs. This question is related to that for an early stage entrepreneur. It's coming from PN and is asking, how do early stage entrepreneurs find their early customers and what should they be spending time on?
So I think one of the biggest mistakes people make is they actually don't know who their customer is. And so your customer is the person that pays you. So agents pay us and their clients pay them. But a lot of people from the outside would be like, oh, Compass's customers are buyers and sellers, but they don't pay us. They meet agents in their sphere of influence. They meet the agent and they sign the contract with the agent that we happen to be party of. But they're really the client. They're really paying the agent. And so, is the customer of Uber a driver or me a passenger? I believe it's the driver. Is the customer, you can't pick two, you got to pick one. Is the customer of Shopify a merchant or the person that's buying the goods online? Airbnb, is it the person looking for homes or the owner? You got DoorDash, is it the restaurateur or the person buying? The pathway to the platform is most often the inventory because the end client wants inventory. And so I would really just urge you to think about who is the customer and who is going to pay you and why are they going to pay you? And so you have to make somebody more money. It may sound crass, but that's, what I've learned, the hard way. You got to create value. What creating value is most often, either some form of money or convenience / time. You got to do something because time is money, right? So, how are we going to create value for that person to earn a reason to be? And really, what is your reason to be? And not your reason to be for yourself, because what you think your reason to be should be, but your reason to be for your customer. And the last thing I'd say is, how do you make it so when your customer 5 years from now, 10 years from now, they're going to say, I don't remember what life was like before you, right? Me as a customer of Google, I don't remember life before Google search. As me as a customer of Amazon, I don't remember life before buying things online. And I want to create a company for agents that's so great that they don't remember what life was like before.
Absolutely. And this question comes from one of this pre-submitted list. And so let's say you got a unique customer insight. how do you recruit your team? How do you raise capital to get to market?
Yeah, so the team is everything. One thing Baya Ogunlesi told me is you want to give as much equity as you can to that early team, because they're the ones who are going to create everything. And when there's ups and downs, you're going to want them to feel like owners, so they're going to build that future with you and get through that down. And a lot of investors, they'll invest in the team more than they'll invest again in the idea, because the team is what's going to turn it around. And so, yeah, the mentality I would suggest is, how do you hire talent that's so good that it will actually pay for itself in the valuation? You know, like Ori, my co-founder, he sold a company to Google, another company to Twitter. His very presence probably made each of those early valuations twice as good. So he more than paid for himself. He helped hire those other people, because talent follows talent. So I can't overstate the value of the best talent. The CEO of a company called Blackstone said, you can't overpay for the right person. If they're really the right person, because they're going to create a whole different part of the company, and just create a much bigger company for everyone. Now, how do you hire them? You make them feel like owners. You make them feel like entrepreneurs. You make them realize that the size of the opportunity ahead of us, and how they can contribute to realizing that opportunity. And you show that you're passionate. You show that you have a track record of doing what you say you're going to do. For me, whether it was running the marathons, founding the nonprofit, working the places that I did, I think it created a track record of showing that I did what I said I was going to do. And that helped, Ori take a risk on partnering with me. But then when you had me and him that sold a company to Google, another to Twitter, we both had independent track records of doing what we said we were going to do. And so it made it very easy to hire talent and to attract capital. And look, I could have said, oh, I just want to do this all myself. But that wouldn't have been the right approach, because I didn't have the technology credit at that time. And so try to make sure you have a team that's well balanced, so that no one can say, no, you don't have what it takes to be great.
Wow, there's so much here. We've got time for one more question. So I'll ask, based on the last step in your process for success, dream up a new dream. What are your new dreams?
Yeah, look, my dreams are very, 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 very exciting, but they could also be very, very distracting. And so I basically, when I started Compass, I said, for the first time ever, I'm going to put all these dreams aside. I actually have a file, a Google Doc, of all my dreams. Whenever I go dream about a wonderful future, I put it in there for a different time. Because right now, again, there's 24,000 people at Compass. I have to deliver for them and give them everything I got. And I know any dream that I have for the future, later in life, will only be easier to realize with Compass being better and better and better. And so all of my focus is on Compass and my family. I have a 7-year-old girl, Raya, a 5-year-old girl, Ruby, and a 2-year-old boy, River. And I want to, be a wonderful father for them and a wonderful husband to my wife, Denise. She's the best, partner I could have ever imagined for. This book would not have been written if it wasn't for her. She really pushed me to do this. Very, very. I mean, she's the one who it was her idea. And when I said no, she's the one who pushed me over 6 months to be creative and push for yes. She hired the writing partner and the editor and the publisher, and she's really the person that just drove this. She's the one who set up events like this that we're doing today. And so my focus is company and family.
I think that's awesome, and something that really shined through the book. A lot of times people write books and don't talk about their partner and their impact on the story. So that was really special. So plug for the book. You got to read the book. There's so much there. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Any parting words or thoughts before we close out?
Yeah. Well, thank you, first of all, for hosting me today. Like the parting word would be, I think there are two teams. There's team positivity and team negativity. Team make it happen, and team I can't do it. I really would push you at any point that you're feeling negative or like you can't do something, just like force yourself just to think more positive. Think about, like, if you had to do it, how would you do it? Mindset is so important. And there's a quote out there, I love quotes, that he or she who says they can and he or she who says they can't are both right. You know, if you're the kind of person that says you can't, then you're not going to, because you say you can't. And the person who says you can, you're going to keep trying, and like, then you can't. Like, you know, our agents, they'll knock on doors, and introduce themselves to people they don't know, just ask them if they want to buy or sell a home, and they'll get no, but then they'll get that yes, so they can. And it's not about how many times you fail. It's only about, you only get points for getting the point. And so that's the one thing I would really leave people with, which is just so core to being an entrepreneur.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time. For those who are team Yes We Can, read the book, lean further in. And those who aren't, read the book. And so thank you so much, Robert. It was truly an honor to be with you today.
Thank you, Calvin. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Thank you, Robert and Calvin, for sharing your journey. Robert, just so you know, before you drop, he dropped. Well, Robert's story about him on the beach is in line with one that I tell people too often, which is entrepreneurship is in people's DNAs. And if they were to get an exit and end up on the beach, they would figure out how to sell coconuts faster and cheaper than the guy next to him. With that, we are so thankful for all of you joining us today. We have some really great programming coming up, so don't miss out. On Tuesday, July 20th, we've got How to Scale Yourself While Scaling Your Company. Also on Tuesday, July 27th, we've got How to Navigate Startup Law with Becky DeGraw. So we look forward to welcoming you all back online soon, and thanks again for joining us.